Hi Year 3, hope you're all okay. Welcome to today's English lesson, and we are continuing with our reading. So for this session you will need your copy of the Ice Palace, a pencil and a jotter. Okay, so if you haven't got that, I'll let you go and get it now, so just pause the video. Okay, fantastic. Hopefully you've got everything that you need. So before we start the main lesson, what I would like to do is to do our little feed forward. So last week you were great at drawing pictures to show your understanding of the words used in the text. Okay, these pictures were fantastic and it really did show that you understood the word and you knew what the word meant. Okay, you were really good at putting these words into your own sentences, which again showed that your understanding of those words. Okay, we're not quite there yet with understanding why the author has used the words that he has. For example, question 3 asked why he'd used the word chasm and not hole. Okay, so a lot of you said that it just sounded like a better word. But the reason he had actually used that word is because the meaning of chasm was a very deep, narrow opening. So he used that word to describe the size of the opening, to show you that it was very deep and very narrow, as opposed to it just being a hole. And a hole could be anything. It could be little or it could be big. So he used the word chasm in order to sort of show the size of that narrow opening in the ground. And just a little reminder, because we're not quite there yet, is to remembering to use our capital letters at the start of our sentences. If we are starting a new sentence, we should always have a capital letter at the beginning and a full stop at the end. Okay, so, and our what is to make a prediction based on what has been read so far, how, reading and researching together, because we are going to be using our book, The Ice Palace. And why is that? It's so that we can predict what will happen next. What I want you to do is just have a little bit of a rewind. Okay, we said that we were going to be predicting. So what can you remember about the predictor magnifier? Okay, what colour is it? Okay, hopefully you will have remembered that predictor magnifier is the blue magnifier, and it says, can you suggest what will happen next and why? Okay, what I want you to do is have another little bit of a rewind, have another think back to that first lesson of this new half term, which was just after Christmas. Okay, we had a lesson on predicting, and we were predicting what was going to happen, having just read the start of our story and finding out that Ivan's little brother had been taken. Okay, so these were the predictions that we made. I think that Ivan will go and look for his little brother, because on the front cover of the book there is a boy out in the pine woods being chased by angry wolves, and we know that Stargic has wolves. The second prediction that came to was, I think that Ivan will find Stargic's hideout, because in the book it says that the villagers aren't afraid of winter or Stargic anymore because of something Ivan did when he was younger. Okay, so those were the predictions that we made as a class. What I would like you to have a look at is just explain our prediction. Explain the words that we included. What did we need to include? What types of words did we include? I'm just going to give you a few minutes if you want to pause it so that you can read through that and pick out those key words. Pause it now. Okay, welcome back. So hopefully, as you've looked at that, you've spotted some key words that you use when you are making a prediction. Okay, I am going to open my next screen, and I have hopefully highlighted the parts that I think you will have noticed. So both of our predictions started with, I think that. So both of them started with that. Both of our predictions have used the subordinating conjunction because. And then after we've used the word because, we have given our evidence. And that evidence may have been from the text, or that evidence may have been from pictures. So, for example, on the first one, it says, because on the front cover of the book, we're using the evidence from the picture. Okay. And then it says, we know that Stargic has wolves. So we are using evidence from the text to support our thinking. And we do know that he has wolves because in the text it did say Stargic was greasing the runners on his sled and rounding up his wolves. So we know that he has wolves. Okay. So we can use evidence from the text and evidence from pictures. And that always follows because. Okay. So we always give our evidence after because. Okay, so just to sum that up, our predictor is our blue magnifier, okay? And with this, our sentence is, I think because, okay? So we say what we think, and then we use our evidence after because. So it says, use the word because to give your evidence. And that evidence can come through pictures, so it could be the pictures in the book, it could be the picture on the front cover, or it could be the written words within the text. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to read our Ice Palace. So if you can open your book and read to page 59. Okay, so if you want to get your book and open it to page 59, we are ready to continue our story. Okay, so how do you know of this? Cried Ivan. And what did you pick from the snow? The old woman held out her hand to him. Bits of ice lay like diamonds in her palm. These are the tears that you cried for your brother, she said. I have followed you, gathering them from the snow, because you will need them soon. Ivan frowned. What would I do with tears? He said. Why will I need them soon? To soften Stargic's heart, replied the old woman. Here, take them. And she tipped the icy pips into Ivan's hands. Ivan gazed at them. I do not understand, he said. What am I to do with these tears? The old woman became grave. At the moment of your greatest danger, she said, you must fling the tears into Stargic's face and say, brothers nevermore shall part, melt the winter in his heart. Ivan said the words softly to remember, so that he would softly to himself, so that he would remember. And the old woman nodded. That is right, she said. Now go, for I can help you no more. When he had gone a little way, Ivan turned to wave farewell, but there was only a little spruce tree that quivered in the wind. He turned and walked on, and after a long time, he came to a mountain. It was a hard, white mountain, and as he drew near, the air grew colder still. At the foot of the mountain was a great high cave with wind booming in its mouth. Ivan shuddered, because he knew that he had come at last to Stargic's land. Inside the cave, it was utterly black. The roar of the wind was deafening, and it was deadly cold. Ivan stopped. The darkness filled him with dread. He looked back to where the grey light spilled a little into the entrance. He could go no further. He must get outside where he could see the sky and the snow and the trees. But his brother must have passed this way. Somewhere in this terrible place, the little boy was waiting for Ivan to come and take him home. He set his lips in the thin, firm line and moved on into the blackness, holding out his arms before him and going very slowly. The wind howled in his ears, and he heard again the laughing voice in it. Something fluttered in his face. He struck it with his hand, and it slid up over his forehead and became tangled in his parka, dragging the hood from his head. At once, something else hit him. Flapping coldly in his hair, Ivan cried out, clawing the thing from its head. It sank needle teeth into his fingers and whirled away on the wind. Another one, this time on his chest. He threw up his arms to protect his face. Whatever the things were, they were all around him. He felt the small collisions, felt them fluttering to his clothing. He screamed, but the wind drowned the cry. He whirled round and round, beating at himself to knock them off, and for every one he brushed, there was always another one to take its place. He knew it was hopeless. He put his head down, wrapped his arms around it, and went through them, and after a time, the collisions stopped. For a long time, Ivan moved onwards through the cold darkness. The sound of the wind began to fade, and he looked back. He could no longer see the light. As he walked, he noticed that the tunnel was becoming higher and wider, and it seemed to be moving towards the lighted place. Presently he stopped, listening intently. Somewhere in front of him he heard a laugh. It was not a pleasant laugh, like the laugh of someone who is enjoying a good joke. It was a cold, flat laugh. And when it came again, Ivan found himself thinking about the laughter he had heard in the wind last night when he was lost and freezing. He moved on to the laughter. As he moved on, the laughter grew louder, and he could hear other signs too, a swishing noise, and now and then a thin, high scream. The tunnel, which by now was wide and very high, took a sudden turn. The sound seemed to be coming from just beyond the turn. Ivan flattened himself against the wall, peered cautiously round, and almost cried out. He was looking into a great glittering cave. The floor was blue ice, and enormous icicles hung in thousands from the roof. Hard blue lights glowed and flickered like cold fire, and the wind from the passage moaned around the walls. In the centre of the cavern, its back towards the boy, stood a hideous figure. It was stooped and crooked, and its white robe hung in folds from a bony frame. In one hand it gripped a thin, springy rod, and of the kind which Ivan's people used to fish for trout in the river. As Ivan watched, the figure turned, pulling on the rod and watching something that fluttered and squealed far up near the roof among the icicles. It was then that Ivan saw what the man was doing, and his heart turned cold. Fishing. The creature was fishing, but not in the water and not for fish. He was fishing in the air, and his victim was a tiny bat that whirled and tugged frantically as the man began to wind in the thin line. But struggle as it might, the poor creature was pulled closer and closer to its monstrous captor, and soon Ivan could see a streak of blood at its mouth from the cruel hook. When the terrified creature was close enough, the man clawed it out of the air, crushed it, and dropped it on the ice, where the broken bodies of several others lay. Then he threw back his head and laughed horribly. Ivan drew back into the passage. The man's cruelty had sickened him, and the laughter turned his blood cold. He tried to tell himself that it didn't matter. The man had not seen him, so he could just turn around and run away and never see the creature again. But deep within himself, he knew the name of this monster. No other man could possibly behave with such cruelty. This man was Stargic, and Ivan knew that if he fell into those awful hands, he need to expect no more mercy than the poor broken bat. And somewhere, not far away, this cruelty had his brother. Oh, this creature had his brother. The thought of his little brother in the hands of a man, such man, filled Ivan with rage. He was so angry that his fear left him. He would fling himself on Stargic, snatch the rod from his hand, and beat him with it until he screamed like the bat had screamed. He clenched his fist and stepped into the open. Instantly he froze. It was as though his arms and his legs had become ice. Try as he might, he could not move. Stargic no longer fished, now sat in the middle of the cavern on a throne of aged grey wood, and his icy stare held Ivan rigid. He moved a hand, beckoning with one grey finger. The pale eyes now seemed to draw Ivan across the icy floor until he stood trembling before the throne. Stargic stared down at him, his hands gripping the arms of the chair. His grey beard was stiff with ice, and his hair fell in frozen strands about his thin shoulders. After a long time he spoke, and his voice was like walking on crisp snow. "Who are you?" Ivan stood up straight. He hoped that Starjik could not see his trembling. I am Ivan, he said. The blacksmith is my father. Starjik's lips twitched cruelly. Why do you come here? He hissed. Do you not know all who enter Starjik's land are dead? I have come for my brother, said Ivan. Your brother is dead, said Starjik. Ivan shook his head. No, he's not dead. I can feel him here. He touched his chest with his mittened hand. That is impossible, snapped Starjik. People couldn't feel other people. They can only see them or hear them. He flung out his hand. Do you see your brother here? Do you hear him? Ivan shook his head. No, but he is nearby. Starjik gripped the arm of the throne and rose to his feet. Very well, he said softly. You are right, little Ivan. Your brother is close by. He turned, beckoning. Come, and I will show you. Ivan's heart leapt. He did not see the smile on Starjik's lips as he turned and shuffled across the floor. Ivan followed. To one side of the cavern, an ice curtain hung from the roof to the floor. Starjik was behind this curtain, and Ivan was close on his heels. The man turned with a leer, pointing. Well, Ivan, here he is. Was it worth all the hardships of your journey? Ivan clapped a hand to his mouth, stifling a cry. He was looking at a great block of ice. It was high. It was higher than 3 houses and as long as a cavern. The ice was as clear as a crystal pool, and inside he saw children, many children, trapped in the solid ice. Some looked as though they were running. Others seemed to have been skipping. Some sat and some stood. There were frozen smiles and frozen frowns. And there, right at the front, gazing out from his icy prison, was Ivan's brother. Starjik laughed cruelly. Such pretty children, he said. And mine forever. Ivan looked into the twisted face, and his eyes were filled with tears. But these children do not move, he cried. You cannot play with them or hear them laugh. You could make such children from painted wood. Starjik said, Oh, no. The finest wood carver could not do that. And besides, I take the children to punish those who sent me away. He laughed again. Once I was a child like these, he said, but the other children would not play with me. They said my heart was cold and they sent me away. He turned to the ice prison, resting his hand on it, looking in. Now I have friends and everyone is a pretty one, for I have chosen them myself. He turned, smiling coldly down at Ivan. You also are a pretty child, he hissed. You would not be out of place in my collection. You would not be out of place at all. They are happy, you know, with me. They have forgotten their homes, and now it is time for you to join them. He reached up and snapped an icicle. Okay, I'm going to leave that there and we'll continue that next week. Okay, so our why is so that we can predict what will happen next. Okay, so I just want you to have a little think. So we know that Starjik wants to freeze Ivan. He said here, you would not be out of place in my collection. And it is now time for you to join them. So we know that he wants to freeze Ivan. But we also know from earlier on that people of the village no longer have to be afraid because of something Ivan did. So I'm not sure that Ivan does get frozen. Okay, what I would like you to do is have a little rewind. And this time we're not just going to rewind and read to the part that we have just read. I want you to think back to the rest of the story that we've read so far. So all of the story up to the page that we are on. Okay, page 81. And I want you to think about what is there in there? What bits have we read that might give us a clue about what will happen next? If you just want to pause the video now, okay, have a think about it. And you could maybe jot some notes down on your book. Okay. Okay, fantastic. Hopefully you've had a real big think about our story so far. So here, I have just got a few bits that I just wanted to remind you about. Okay, I haven't written them down on my pad, but I have put them onto my screen. So I just wanted to remind you about the old woman, okay? And the old woman appeared to help the boy. So sometimes she was an icicle, a bear, or a spruce tree. She was even an owl, okay? She told the boy that he needed to soften Starjik's heart, okay? And she gave him some ice, they're called icy pips, but they were his tears that she had collected by following him around, okay? And she says that you must fling the tears into Starjik's face and say, brothers nevermore shall part, melt the winter in his heart, okay? In order to help Ivan get his little brother. Okay, so what I want you to have to think about is what will happen next. Why have I reminded you about the tears and the old woman? And how might that be linked to our ending? Okay, what I would like us to do is predict what happens next. Okay, we are going to use our sentence, I think that, and then you're going to say what you think, so that's your opinion. You are then going to say because, and then after because, you are going to give the evidence from the book in order to support your prediction, what you think, okay? It might be that you think it's how he melts the ice. It might be something to do with the tears, or it might be something about the old woman. Okay, and what we're going to do is we are going to write our prediction. So I am going to share a different screen with you so that you can see my book. Just have to find that. Oh, not quite sure where we've gone. Okay, if I go all the way down, hopefully you will be able to see my camera. Okay, and it's the one that is on the table. Okay, so here we are. I am going to start by writing the date, and the date is, I'm going to write the full date. I'm going to write Monday, the 1st of February 2021. Okay. So then I'm going to start my sentence with I think that, okay, and then I'm going to say what I think. Okay, so I think it's got something to do with the old woman, and I think the old woman will come to help, and I think she'll appear in the cave. And I think because I know from the story that she has appeared, because she's appeared as a bear to help when the wolves were there. She appeared as the tree when he was falling down the chasm, and she was the snowy owl who helped. So that's what I'm going to say. So I'm going to say, I think that the old woman will appear in the cave as another animal to help Ivan release his brother. So that's what I think will happen. But now I need to say because, and now I need to give the evidence. So the evidence is the bits from the story when we were talking about the bear. So I think that the old woman will appear in the cave as another animal to help Ivan release his brother, because I know from the story that she appears when Ivan needs help, as she appeared as a bear to save him from the wolves, and as an owl to help him find the snowdrift, and well, he needs help now. Needs help now before Stargic freezes him. Okay. So I'm just going to read that back to check that it makes sense and check that I've included everything in it. So I need to say that start with I think that, I need to include because, and I need evidence from my book. So I think that the old woman will appear in the cave as another animal to help Ivan release his brother, because I know from the story that she appears when Ivan needs help, that she appeared as a bear to save him from the wolves, and as an owl to help him find the snowdrift, and he needs help now before Stargic freezes him. Okay, that is my prediction. I have written that in my book, made sure I've got my full stop at the end, my capital letter at the start of my sentence. So what I am going to do is take you back to my screen here and just remind you. So we're going to start with I think that. You're going to say what you think, okay? Then you are going to say because, and that's when you follow it with your evidence, okay? As long as you include evidence from the book, you can predict anything, okay? Think about how we can melt the ice. Think about the tears that can be used, and think about the old woman, okay? We look forward to reading your predictions, and please share these on Bojo Portfolio for us. Okay, see you soon. Bye.